Bonjour. Welcome to Wahsa Distance Education Center's radio Zoom classes. This is MEL3E, grade 11 workplace math, and I'm Bronwyn Slade. If you'd like to participate live today, you can call the Wahsa studio at 1-800-465-7144 or 737-4017. You can listen on the radio at 91.9 FM or on the television at Bell Express View Channel 972. You are always welcome to join me live through the Zoom link, even just to watch, which is available from me, your teacher, and also your DEC. Our classes are scheduled Monday through Thursday from 9 till 10 in the morning. And we are wrapping up our 6th week of our 9 course. Monday is a holiday here in Ontario. It's Victoria Day. So we will not be airing on Monday. So we will see you again on, or this, back here on Tuesday at 9. So enjoy a long weekend. At this point, as we only have 3 more weeks left in our course, it's really important to be submitting work for marking. A reminder that the support questions, the ones marked with the pencil icon, are not for marking. They are practice problems. It's a good idea to do them to prepare you for the key questions, but you don't have to send them to me. You can decide which ones to do and how many to do. If you're understanding a concept, doing 1 or 2, don't feel like you need to do all of them. But look at them all because they are different and dealing with different topics within the units. So if you're understanding, skip questions. If you need more practice, even if it's just on particular things, let me know and I can send you more practice. The key questions, the ones with the little key icon, are the ones to submit for marking. So please do all of these questions and sending them all to me, showing all of your work, your steps you're thinking. The more information you give me, the easier it is for me to give you lots of marks or part marks. It gives me more information about how you are doing and what you're understanding. And if you're just making calculation error, if you show your work, then I can see that it was just you wrote down an extra 0, or you did something, you made a mistake on when you were calculating, but everything else is there correctly, then I can give you the majority of the marks, if not all the marks, depending on the situation. So it is better to show me all of your work and your thinking so I can give you credit for what you truly understand. There are 3 methods for submitting your work. The first is to scan your work in and send it electronically. So if you have a smartphone or a device, you can send your work, they can scan either the iPhone Notes app or the Android Google Drive app. Both of them have scan functions that are fairly straightforward. If you don't want to do that, you can just send me a picture, though the files are a little bit bigger and a little bit harder to read. So scanning often can work better, but if taking a picture is what you need to do, no worries, that is totally fine. Then you can send it to me either through email to studentwork@nnec.on.ca and CC it to bronwyn.slate@nnec.on.ca. Or you can also send it to me through Facebook Messenger to bslate.wahsa. The second method is to drop your work off into Lookout. So we have an outdoor mailbox at our location 74 Front Street. We're the bright red building next to the post office. And we have a small white mailbox next to our side entrance. We continue to be closed to the public, but you're welcome to access that mailbox at any time during the day. And then I'll get your work and get it back to you as soon as I can. Then the third method is to hand your work into your DEC. And then your DEC can either send your work through the Express or fax it to 807-737-1732 or toll-free fax to 1-800-463-7852. If you'd like to connect with me through social media, both my Facebook and my YouTube channel are under the name bslate.wahsa. So if you friend me on Facebook or you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you'll get notifications whenever I upload one of our classes. All of our radio Zoom classes are recorded while airing, and then I upload them as soon as I can. Some days it takes me longer than others to our YouTube channel. So they're there generally within the week. There are also videos that explain common errors or confusing concepts. So if you're struggling with something or something's not making sense, it is a good place to go and check out to see if I have a video that's addressing that topic. Possibly it will help you with things that aren't necessarily in our course, but could be helpful for what you're doing. A really visual subject. So I strongly encourage you to check out the YouTube channel. If you can't join me live through Zoom, it's really just going to set you up for the most success to have both the audio and the visual to understand what is going on. If you can't access the YouTube channel, let me know and I can send you a copy of the recordings so you can still get the full experience of all my lessons. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to me. I am attempting to reach out to folks to check in as we are wrapping up our course and wrapping up the school year. But if I've missed you or if you haven't been in contact with me for a long time, I don't know that I should be reaching out to you, that you are one of my priority students. So please feel free to reach out to me directly if you are hoping to finish your credit this term. My email address is bronwyn.slate, which is spelled BRONWYN.SLATE@nnec.on.ca. My Facebook is bslate.wahsa. The phone of the office is 807-737-1488, and my extension is 2209, which is working, and I can check my voicemail now, so you can leave me a message if you miss me. You can also call toll-free at 1-800-667-3703. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., though I do teach the first hour and the last hour of my day, so that is not a great time to try to get a hold of me. All right, we are doing lesson 15 today, leasing vehicles. So this is our last lesson of unit 3, and we're doing it today as Monday is a holiday. So we're not doing our Throwback Thursday today, just so that we have enough time to cover all of our lessons and also then review right before the end. So our learning goals for today are that at the end of this lesson, you will be able to calculate the total costs of leasing a vehicle. You will understand the fine print and procedures involved in leasing a vehicle, as it can be a bit confusing. Your success criteria is fairly straightforward. First, you can calculate leasing costs, and second, you can explain the likely fine print and procedures when leasing a vehicle. All right, but let's first dive in and do some mental math to get our brains going. I believe understanding strategies and understanding what's going on sets us up for the most success. So memorization and those drill and kill mad minutes that many of us experience in elementary school don't really set us up. They are fine for practice if you are practicing to establish for facts that you've already established. Sure, doing things fast isn't the best. So that's anyway, that's another rant. But we work on developing those strategies that we can use in various situations instead of focusing on how many facts we can do in a minute. So our question today is 48 plus 34, and we're going to add up in chunks. So we can do this in various ways. We don't have to do it. There's no rules in terms of what chunks you're going to add up in. So you could do it in ones that are friendly, or and what numbers are friendly for you could be different than someone else. So I'm going to start at 34, and I'm going to add a chunk. First, I'm going to add 6 to get me to 40. So that means I've taken 6 away from here, and I've got 42 left. So now I'm just going to add 42, because that's 48 in total, and I can see that 42 plus 40 is 82. So 48 plus 34 is 82. And that's how you can add up in chunks. You could choose, so maybe you chose to take 2 from 34 and add it to 48 to get that 50. Then you have 50 plus 32, that would give you 82 as well. Again, there's various ways you can do this. You don't need to do it in the same chunks. You could add up with, if going from 40 to 42 isn't a comfortable thing for you, if you wanted to do it in 10s and then 2, that is totally fine as well. So really adding up chunks, you do whatever is friendly for you. All right, mine's on what in prior learning might we need to know for today. So I just thought we should go over some vocabulary to make sure that if you are working with a lease, you know some of the language. There is lots of language, and I didn't want to bore you with going through all of it in case leasing isn't something that you are currently looking into, but I would strongly suggest you making sure that you understand the language before leasing or before talking about someone, as it can be really confusing. So an open-end lease is a lease that requires the consumer, so the person, us, will say, to pay the difference between the vehicle's residual value and the actual value when the lease ends. So an open lease means that you have to pay it out. A closed-end lease is when you don't have to pay it out and you can return the vehicle at the end. The termination fee or disposal or deposition fee is the amount lessees, so lessees are us, must pay at the end of a closed-end lease if they choose not to pay the residual value and buy the car. So when you are ending the lease, if you're going to return the car in a closed-end lease, you still have to pay a termination fee. If you are going to pay the residual value, which is how much the car is still worth, and buy the car, then you pay that amount. Security deposit is the cash sum that lessors, the person who's leasing it to you, require a lease at lease inception as a safety guard against non-payment. Lessors often require a security deposit of about 1 monthly payment. So this is something that you get refunded at the end if you've made all your payments and the car is in good condition. But if you don't make all the payments, then they keep that. Or if the car is in not good condition, they keep that. Mileage allowance. So the maximum number of miles a vehicle or kilometers a leased vehicle can be driven per year without incurring a penalty. So this is always stated in your leasing contract. So this is just saying that so that you don't, they want their vehicle back in good condition without not a lot of kilometers on it. So there's a restriction of how many you can actually drive in a year. Wear and tear charges. These are charges for damages to a lease car that are greater than the normal or reasonable wear and tear of a vehicle. So, and you need to make sure that these are defined in the agreement, because what you might think is normal wear and tear and what they decide is normal wear and tear might not be the same. And then you could end up paying a really large fee at the end of the lease. So it's important to be clear on that. Early termination, when the consumer ends the lease before the agreed upon time. Again, early termination can result in a hefty and a large fee. Default charge, this is the penalty charged if the lessee is late for a monthly payment. Oh, those are all the words that I said for this. So really, there's lots of various charges that can be made with a lease if you don't follow it exactly to the letter of the contract. So it's really just important to understand what those words mean and what you're agreeing to. All right, so let's dive in terms of understanding what a lease actually is and how it all works. So when we'll use this in real life, so maybe you're going to have a lease at some point, so that's direct, but also we're learning how information is communicated. So lease contracts are confusing, and any contracts often are confusing. So understanding all the bits and pieces and developing that skill set of knowing what to look for and interpreting contracts and things is part of what we're learning to do as well, beyond the direct leasing component. All right, so let's talk about what leasing cars means. And this is on page 40 of your IL book. So a car lease allows you to drive a brand new vehicle for a fixed period at an agreed monthly rate. So it's a long-term rental. And once the fixed lease period is over, which is typically between 2 to 4 years, then the consumer must either return the car to the leasing company or purchase it for market value. There are extra fees. So there's a security deposit, which is refundable at the end of the lease if your vehicle's in good condition. There's a down payment. There's an excess kilometer usage fee. So that's that mileage allowance if you go over the kilometers that they have said that you're allowed to use per year. And then there's HST on your monthly payments. There may be extra other fees as well. These are just a few of them. Then at the end of your lease, you have 3 options. You could return the vehicle and lease a new one. So you can trade it sort of like you're trading it in and get a brand new vehicle. You can purchase the vehicle at a predetermined price and keep it, so it's the market value, how much it is worth now, depending on the depreciation rate. Or you could return the vehicle and walk away. You could be like, okay, I'm good to go. I don't need a vehicle anymore, or I'm purchasing a different vehicle or whatever, but you don't have to, after that period of time, you return the vehicle, you're not committed to anything. So what are the benefits of leasing a vehicle? Leases are often only for 3 years, so that 2 to 4 year range. And so you can get a new car more often. That can be really, really useful depending on your situation. Maybe you just like having a new car. When my grandmother was getting older, she would lease a vehicle because then she didn't have to deal with the maintenance. So it was just made more sense for her because she wasn't going to have a vehicle forever. But this way she consistently had a new vehicle that was running really well, and then she didn't have to worry about the maintenance. So that could be something that makes sense. You're driving the latest safety and driving technology. So with potential for better fuel economy. So this is just because you're getting the latest models. As technology improves, you get to experience the technology opposed to driving something that is 15 or 20 years old, just because that's the vehicle that you have. Your payments are usually lower on leases compared to car loans. You generally have lower maintenance costs as you are always covered by the factory warranty because it's a brand new vehicle. Leasing doesn't require a car loan approval or a hefty payment up front, so that can be really beneficial. There can be a lower or no down payment. But what are the disadvantages? So you have a limited mileage. So if you are someone who knows that you drive a lot in a year, this might not be the right fit for you. Leasing can sometimes mean higher insurance rates. So you might be paying lower car loan rates or lower rates in terms directly to the car place, but you might be paying higher insurance rates that might end up costing you more or not saving you any money. There are fees that kind of rise at the end of the lease that you might not be preparing for. The monthly lease payments go toward the use of the vehicle instead of the ownership of the vehicle. So you don't end up with a vehicle at the end, though you've been paying for it for the period of time. You're not allowed to make irreversible custom changes or modifications to the vehicles. So you can't, if that's something that's interesting to you, you can't do that because it's not your vehicle. You cannot end your lease inexpensively or easily before the normal contract end date. So it costs you a lot of money and it's complicated to try to get out of a lease. And there's our potential excess wear and tear charges. So you might not know what those are. So then just a quick overview of the comparing buying a car or leasing a car or vehicle. So if you're buying a car, so to figure out what is right for you, there's one is not better than the other. It's just what makes most sense for you and your household. So if you are buying a car, it requires more money up front and each month. Where you're leasing, it costs you less upfront money each month, so you can afford a more expensive car if you want. The bills, you can pay off your auto loan, which eliminates a monthly cost. If you are always leasing, then you're making car payments for life because you're always paying into that lease. The commitment, you have the freedom to sell or trade in whenever you want. A lease contract is difficult and expensive to break. The dollars and cents, it usually costs less than leasing overall over time. But if you're leasing, you can get a tax break if you use the car for business purposes. The time, if you sell it's yours to sell total and drive for 20 years or wherever, right? However long it works for. Or you can upgrade to a newer model every couple of years if you lease. And then also the car value, if you're buying it, the car value depreciates as soon as you drive it off the lot. And leasing, you owe fees for exceeding your annual mileage or any damage to the car. Whereas if it's your own car, that doesn't matter. And if it, because you can drive it as much as you want. And if you are leasing, the depreciation value doesn't affect you because you don't own the car. So pros and cons to both. You decide what makes the most sense for you. Okay, so how do we figure out how much it actually is going to cost you to lease a vehicle? So the conditions of a lease are given below. So how much will be paid to use the car for 3 years, assuming the security deposit is returned? So you have to pay $2,500 as a down payment. Then you have to pay a $300 refundable security deposit. Then you have 3 years of monthly payments at $374.56. And you have to do HST on each monthly payment. So there's a lot going on. Let's do your monthly payments first. Let's think about this. So there are a couple of different ways that you can calculate this. You can calculate you need to calculate the HST on your monthly payment, and you need to calculate how many it is over 3 years. So you can either calculate your HST first on each monthly payment and then multiply that by the number of months in a year for 3 years, or you can calculate your number of years, like how much your payments are going to be overall, and then calculate the HST after. So I'm going to do the HST first. So that means I'm taking my monthly payment, so $374.56, and I'm going to times it by 1.13, 13% for the HST, and 1 because I need it to add it to my payment. So if I do that on my calculator, 374.56, using my Desmos calculator, which is always in the show notes that you can check it out if you want to. Remember, there's an app if that works better for you. So that means with taxes, my monthly payment is actually going to be $423.25. So this is the total monthly payment. So over the course of the years, so over 3 years, that is 36 payments. How did I get 36? Well, because there's 12 months in 1 year, times it by 3, and that's 36 payments. So I have 36 payments of $423.25. So I need to calculate that. Again, if you don't do it exactly the same way that I'm doing it, if what you're doing is logical, it makes sense, you should get the same answer. You will get the same answer if you do it correctly. There are more than one ways to get to this answer, and it's fine to do it different ways, but you still get to the same number at the end. So it ends up being $15,237. So that's how much you pay for the monthly payments over the 3 years, including taxes. Okay, so then still, how much do we pay overall? Because we pay more than that. So there's 2 ways. So we can do, method 1, we can add them all together. So we have $2,500 that we're going to pay at the beginning for down payment, plus $300 that we pay as a refundable security deposit. So we pay all of that at the beginning, plus the $15,237 for your payments overall. So then if we add those together, that figures out how much we pay over the 3 years. So $2,500 plus $300 plus $15,237 is equal to $18,037. But the security deposit is returned. So if the deposit, so we pay the $300 at the beginning, but then we get it back at the end. So that means that we do $18,037, take away 300, which is going to be $17,737 is how much we actually pay. The second method, if you don't want to do it like that at this point, is to just not add in the $300, right? So if we know we're getting that back, so we're not being asked how much we pay at the beginning, we're just being asked how much we pay at the end, and we got the $300 back. So we can just do, we know we pay a down payment of $2,500, and we know we pay the monthly payments over 3 years is $15,237. So that means that that is equal to $17,737, which is the same way. So if you don't want to add in the $300, the security deposit, and then take away the security deposit, you don't have to if the deposit is being returned. You can just jump to it and just add the down payment and the monthly payments all together, and that will tell us how much is paid at the end, by the end of the 3 years in total, because the security deposit comes back. So just, I've noticed when marking is that many folks get confused in terms of, they know that if the security deposit is returned, that maybe they need to subtract it, but they don't add it in at the beginning. So that means that they end up paying less than they really are supposed to. So you only can subtract the security deposit is if you already paid it, because the deposit, you have to give them that money in order to get it back. So if it's returned, you can either give them the money and get it back, so then you can add it in and subtract it, or if it's returned, you can just ignore it because you know that that's going to come back if the question's asking you how much you have at the end. Hopefully that makes sense. So we're now going to do a question where the security deposit is not returned. So this is why we're doing another example. So the conditions of the lease are given below. Again, how much will be paid to use the car for 5 years, assuming the security deposit is not returned. So this is why this is different, other than the numbers being different. This is super important, which is why I'm boxing it really a lot. So the same thing that we did before. So I'm going to calculate the HST on my payments. So that is $483.96 times 1.13, because I want my payment and my tax. So the 0.13 is the tax, and then the 1 is representing the payment. So we do that. That tells us how much our monthly payments really are with taxes. Remember, you could just multiply it by 0.13 and then add it to your monthly payment, but this way it does both steps at once. So that gives me $546.87. So actually per month, because we have to pay it with tax, we are paying $546.87. So then over 5 years, that means that we pay 60 payments. And remember, how do we get that 60 number? Well, it's 5 years times 12 payments. 5 times 12 is 60. So to figure out how much we pay over the course of the lease in payments in total, so we do 60 times $546.87. So 60 times 546.87 is equal to $32,812.20. 32,812.20. Do 8, 12, 20. So that's how much you pay in the payments over the course of the 5 years. After the 5 years, you paid that much to use this vehicle. So now to figure out the total paid, there's only one way to do it, because we're going to pay the $5,000 deposit. No, sorry, the $5,000 down payment plus the $450 refundable security deposit. But we ended up not getting it back. So we have to add it in. We have to pay that at the beginning, plus the monthly payments, $32,812.20. So we add all of those together. And that is how much we pay at the beginning, but also how much we pay in total. So that is $38,262.12. 38,262.20. So the total paid to use the vehicle for 5 years is $38,262.20. So because the deposit is not returned, we don't subtract it, right? We have to add it in and then we don't subtract it. So that is what the difference is. When your security deposit is either returned or not returned. So you can either add it in every single time and then decide if you subtract it or don't, depending on if it is returned or not. And that's how you actually do the money. If you are not keen to do it that way and you prefer to just think about what's going on at the end, if your security deposit is returned, you don't have to add it in. But if it isn't, then you do have to add it in. So just something to be paying attention to that is a little bit tricky and that I've noticed many folks get confused. And even when I was first looking at it, I was unsure. I had to think about it in order to figure out how it would work. All right, so now you can do the support questions on page 41. The question number 1 talks about adding up all of your leasing costs. Now we need to talk about kilometer usage surcharge. This is the other consistent fee that we can calculate with some information. So this is on page 42 of your IL book. So this is when you're leasing, the vehicle has a maximum kilometer usage, also known as mileage. But we're talking about the same thing. So if you go over the maximum usage, you have to pay an extra amount called a surcharge. You pay it per kilometer. Every kilometer that you go over your limit, you pay this money. So let's look at an example. So calculate the kilometer surcharge if the allowable usage is 75,000 kilometers when the actual usage was 94,367 kilometers and the surcharge was 14 cents per kilometer. So over the course of your lease, you were allowed to use 75,000 kilometers. That's this number. But you actually used 94,367 kilometers. So you have to pay for the extra that you used, you have to pay 14 cents per kilometer. So how do we figure that out? So first we need to figure out the extra kilometers. This always has 2 steps. So how many extra kilometers did you actually use? You actually used 94,367, but you were allowed to use 75,000. So we just need to figure out what the difference is between these 2 numbers. So we do the amount that we actually used, 94,367, take away 75,000. And we find out that we use an extra of 19,367. 19,367. So those are the extra kilometers that we used that now we have to pay for. So then we have to calculate the surcharge, because for every one of those kilometers, we have to pay 14 cents. So we do 19,367 times 14 cents, 0.14. So we do that on our calculator and we get $2,711.38. So that means that you must pay extra $2,711.38 at the end of the lease. So that's why it's really important to not go over your usage, or to make sure that you, if you're agreeing to it, that you really can keep within that amount, so you don't end up paying an extra $2,000 or $3,000. It could be different. If you only go a little bit, it's a little bit, but to just really be aware of what's realistic for you. Okay, example 4, let's look again. Calculate the kilometer surcharge if the allowable usage was 50,000 kilometers when the actual usage was 48,732 kilometers and the surcharge was 9 cents. So here we had an actual usage, we're allowed 50,000 kilometers. We actually used 48,732. Now, is that more or less than $50,000? 50,000 kilometers, sorry. It is less. So do we have to pay extra money? No. We did not go over the allowable usage. So we don't have to pay a surcharge. So that's really important to pay attention to. Many folks, when I have been marking, I have noticed that many people aren't paying attention and they just say, oh, I always need to subtract them, and whatever I end up with the difference is, I multiply that by the surcharge. But in this situation, you don't go over. So if you don't go over your allowed usage, that means you don't have to pay anything extra. You only pay extra if you go over the kilometers that you were given. Hopefully you don't go over the kilometers that you were given so that you don't have to pay an extra surcharge. So you really need to be paying attention when you're looking at your questions to make sure that you're reading the context of the situation. You're reading the situation. You're not just plugging in the answers. Part of math is understanding what is going on and why. Many people, and many times when we've taught this, so it's not just the way that people do it, but also the way that we've taught it, which isn't always great. I can debate that for a whole nother lesson, but we won't go there. And so you need to think about what's going on and what makes sense. So if you haven't gone over the usage, you don't have to calculate a surcharge. Pay attention. Make sure what you're doing makes sense. So now you can do the support questions on page 42 to 43, questions 2 and 3. So I just wanted to go over the steps of leasing a car to make sure that you understand sort of the procedure about it. It may be slightly different depending on the place that you do it, but just to really understand, let's zoom in. Okay, so things to consider when you are leasing a car. So figure out how long you want to lease your vehicle for. Leasing a vehicle longer than 3 years can significantly reduce your monthly payments. However, you run the risk of experiencing problems that aren't covered under the warranty in this case. So usually cars have a 3-year warranty. So if you are going to have a longer lease, you might end up having to deal with maintenance or repairs. Figure out your price range. As we mentioned, sorry, this is just connected to whatever the web where I got this. Leasing might broaden the range of models available to you. So it's important to do your research, right? So if you know, we have talked about this in terms of if you have a certain budget in mind, A leasing might mean that you have access to a more expensive vehicle opposed to if you were buying it. So do your research and figure out what makes the most sense for you. But just because you can afford it doesn't mean you have to afford it, right? You don't have to spend the money on leasing if something that if you budgeted for something and then you look at something and whatever it is that you're like, oh, this car really works for us. Oh, but it's a lot less than we were expecting. You don't have to spend more money just because you budgeted. So save that money, invest that money, do something else with that money. All right, step number 3 is check for any deals. Oftentimes manufacturers or even just dealers themselves run leasing incentives, which allow you to get an even better price on your new vehicle. So this part can be really hard. I'm not great at this part. Is the like checking out deals, comparing, negotiating, that you can do that if that feels comfortable and like is beneficial for you. Usually you can get other better deals, but it's not a skill set that all of us have. Then pick out your car. Once you've decided on your price range, it's easy to narrow down your options to fit your budget. Begin your search today by taking a look at their online inventory. So this is eautolease.com. So they're advertising their place, but you can look at places that are local to you. And then you need to negotiate and sign your contract with the vehicle. So here they're again advertising themselves, saying that you can begin financing right here on our site or just give them a call. But so wherever you're going to be buying the vehicle or leasing the vehicle from, you then need to negotiate and sign the contract and what you're agreeing to, and making sure that you're reading all of the fine print so you know what your excess surcharge is for excess mile or kilometers, that you know what your termination date is, and what your extra fine is, you know what the wear and tear is qualified as normal wear and tear and what doesn't, so that you can know if that's reasonable for you. So make sure that you really read your contract and negotiate that really carefully. All right, so then we're going to do one last example of putting all the pieces together, because in life, we don't have everything separated. We need to connect everything and really understand what's going on. So that's what we're going to do. So for this example, number 5, Lacey wants to lease a vehicle for a business under the following conditions: the 5-year term, monthly payments of $295, a security deposit of $500, delivery charge of $415, and a kilometer allowance of 25,000 kilometers a year, which is 15 cents per kilometer for each additional kilometer. The residual value at the end of the lease is $10,500, including taxes and fees. How much will it cost for her to lease the vehicle for 5 years if she returns the vehicle in good condition, having driven 1,300 kilometers? I think this is supposed to be 1,300 kilometers extra. Is that, I want to calculate, so I'm just going to call it, let's say extra. I spell extra right. I want there to be a surcharge. So 13,000 is not extra per year. So sometimes this, well, you know what? I think really what this is supposed to be, I think I'm supposed to have, I think it lost a 0. So I'm going to erase that. And I think when I was typing it, I just forgot a 0. So we're going to put in this 0, and this is 130,000 kilometers. So first, let's figure out, we got lots to do. So it's can be a little bit daunting. So if she returns the vehicle in good condition, that means that her security deposit is going to come back. Is returned. So we don't need to worry about the security deposit. We need to figure out the taxes on the payments for 5 years. So let's do that first. So HST on your payments. So this is $295 times 1.13 is equal to $295 times 1.13 gives us $333.35. So those are your monthly payments. So 5 years of payments is equal to $333.35 times how many payments? 60. Remember, 5 years is 60 payments over the 5 years because there's 12 payments per month. Sorry, 12 monthly payments per year. So $333.35 times 60 is $20,001. No, $20,001. There we go. That's how I say that. So that is how much the payments, the total of payments. That's one thing we need to know. Okay, so then the other thing we need to figure out is the kilometer usage. So we know because it is $25,000 per year. That means that it's 25,000 times 5 because there's 5 years, right? So sometimes it might give you it like that. We've been having questions where we just tell you the whole amount, but sometimes I might say it per year. So it's important to know. So that's 125,000 kilometers, which the actual was 130,000 kilometers. So the extra, how many extra kilometers have been used? So we do 130,000, take away 125,000. So that means that we have an extra 5,000 kilometers, which means that the surcharge is 5,000 times, remember, an extra 15 cents per kilometer. So 5,000 times 15 cents, extra zero. It's easy to drop or add a zero, is $750. Okay, so then how much are the total? What's the total cost after the 5 years? So we have the monthly payments. So we figured out the total of the monthly payments was $20,001. The security deposit, we know we got back because it's in good condition. So we're not going to add that in. There's a delivery charge of $415, which we haven't talked about before, but they can happen. And then we have the added surcharge for the kilometers, which is $750. Now, this doesn't mention a down payment, so we don't have a down payment because it doesn't say it. So we're not going to add that in. But it does say the residual value at the end of the lease is $10,500. So what does that mean? That's how much the vehicle is worth at the end, which means that we don't have to pay that. That's not a down payment. That's just saying that the car is worth that much at the end of the 5 years. So it's extra information for this question. So that means that if we're going to add these three numbers together, we have $20,001 plus $415 for the delivery charge, plus, I forgot a zero, plus $750. This is the great thing about Desmos is that you can go in and fix it wherever you need to fix it, which calculators can be a pain. So that means that it's $21,166 is how much Leasing would have to pay at the end of the 5 years. Or would have paid. Anyway, we're going to just keep going because I don't want to. We have one more thing. So if this is all the same, our new question is if Lacey purchased the vehicle at the end of the lease, how much will she pay for it? So she will pay. She's already paid $10,166, right? She paid that by the end of the 5 years. But if she wants to buy it out, that's what this residual value is. So it's still worth $10,500. So that means that's the purchase price at this point. If she wants to pay that amount, then she can take it home. So that means that she's paid a total of $31,666 by the end of the lease if she wants the vehicle, because she's paid this over 5 years. And this is the buyout pay, what she's going to buy it out to get the car at the end. So that's just something to pay attention to in case that comes up in a question or a situation. All right, let's consolidate before we run out of time. So lesson 15, the leasing of vehicle lesson. So we talked about how this is a long-term rental and there are both pros and cons. It isn't necessarily a guaranteed great idea or an awful idea. It really depends on your situation. You really need to reflect upon that for yourself. We talked about how there's a kilometer usage surcharge, which is your excess mileage, how much extra you go over, times your surcharge rate. If you don't go over the usage, you don't pay a surcharge. Make sure that you're paying attention to that. And then there's the fine print and the procedures. So knowing that if there's a refundable security deposit, how to deal with that, and if you are getting it back or not, and that there's a purchase price at the end of the lease. If you are you're paid all the money for the lease, but at the end of it, if you still want the vehicle, there is a residual value, how much the car is still worth, or the purchase price is how much you have to pay for it at that time. So hopefully you can now calculate the leasing costs, and you can explain the likely fine print and procedures when leasing a vehicle so that you really understand the whole process. If you have any questions, as always, please reach out and contact me. My number is 807-737-1488, extension 2209. You can call toll free at 1-800-667-3703. My email address is bronwyn.slate@nmec.on.ca, and my Facebook is bslateWahsa. My YouTube is also bslateWahsa, and I will get this lesson up there shortly as soon as I can. My office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So reach out if you'd like to chat about this lesson or any other lessons. I hope you have a lovely day. Thanks so much for joining me. Enjoy your long weekend. Remember, we're not back here until Tuesday. Mugich.